All right, let's do a workflow on the other model that Carrie had photographed at the Photography Schoolhouse DittoCam. And again, the first step I like to do is sharpen, unsharp mask, 2060. It's a defog. Use it if you want. Don't use it if you don't want. It's what I do. And it is not a sharpening. I'm not sharpening the image. I'm just taking the fog away because I will sharpen at the end. Okay, so it's not effectively a sharpening technique. So I'm going to dodge. Now again, I mentioned this before in Chris's workflow. Using the dodge tool technically is destroying the pixels, but so it's a destructive technique. And you know what? That's really getting to me. It's you're getting into the whole theory of how much is really going to count and how much is really not going to count. So right now I'm going into the red of the eye, and with a very, very small clone, I'm going to clean up her eyes just a little bit. She's got a little bit of redness in there. So I usually get in there. Back in the old days of film, when we used to retouch our prints by hand with pencils and pastels and lacquers and all kinds of smelly lacquer thinners, we used to have to do this by hand. It's so much easier nowadays. So I'm going to do a quick dodge. Be very careful not to dodge the eye whites too much. It just will not look right. So you got to be careful. So I added some catch lights, you can tell on the bottom. Let's dodge that a little more. See the catch lights, and I brighten the eyes, the blue of the eyes, just a little more. Lighten them up a bit. Okay, so we've got a nice lighting effect going on. See what that other strip light that Carrie had? She got a little bit of a beauty mark. I'm going to take that down just a bit. So we've got this nice lighting going on. Very, very simple. It works. And I'm going to go under her eyes here and do a little bit more retouching. I've got it on normal. Opacity is around 23. She's got some hair going in her eyes, but I am not going to worry about that stuff. Okay, before I take too many of her blemishes off, and she doesn't have that many. Now she has a fine coating of hair, so we got to be very careful not to over sharpen or overwork the image as far as adding too much contrast, because the hairs are really going to start to pop out. We want to keep this image to a very soft effect. So I'm fixing up the eyes. The eyes are so important, it's the windows of the soul. So I'm just fixing up her skin, the major blemishes and lines under her eyes. Okay, and I'm going to add a soft focus effect in a minute. For now, let me just burn around a little bit. And we used to do this back in the old days. I'm going to highlight. Back in the old days in the darkroom, we used to burn and dodge. So it's a classic technique. Now I'm going to bring that to mid-tone, and I'm going to burn it around a little bit more. So that way our attention goes and is drawn directly to her face. Okay, two softening effects I'm going to do. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Okay, so we've got in the history palette Gaussian blur. Go back one state, click on the Gaussian blur history brush. This is old. I mean, this is such an old technique. This is one of the first techniques I did back in 10 years ago when I got into digital. I still use it when I need it. I don't use it all the time. But when I want to go in and almost add a layer of very subtle soft to her skin, or it's almost like adding a layer of makeup, and I want to just soften the wispiness. She's got that very pale kind of facial hair going on. She's a very pretty girl. So I'm just going to soften her skin just a bit more. I'm avoiding the lips and edges. Just going into the pores and that. Okay, it's almost like going on with a bit of makeup. I'm going to use the clone stamp. I'm going to get rid of that right there. Cool. All right. I should mention before I run the final soft focus action, the settings on Carrie's cameras are probably turned up so that the contrast and saturation are really good, because these colors and contrasts are right off camera. It's pretty good. Now I in my camera used to turn those down and just adjust them according to what I needed. So my images coming off the camera used to look very flat and dull, but that was okay. I wanted it that way. And by the way, I only shoot 100% JPEG. So that way I could add the contrast and I could add the saturation. So changing your settings in the camera will affect the final output and the workflow. The most important thing you want to really achieve here is good lighting, good composition, good exposure, and good white balance. But if I did want to go in and adjust the contrast, I like going to curves or Control M or Command M on a Mac, and I do a little bit of a S curve. Now sometimes you can go in and just open up the middle. You notice how that really brightens it up a bit, or darken the shadows, or again back to the S curve. Let's get rid of that little. Okay, the S curve is a very classic pattern, but you can overdo it, so you don't want to do too much. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and plus I'm going to go to open the curves again. I'm just going to open up those midtones just a little bit. Okay, so that's how you can adjust the curves, the contrast, and all that good stuff. Now the action I'm going to run is called the Hodgesoft. James Hodgins created that, and he's the co-founder of our website. So I hit, it's 2 steps. Let me show you this here. And there's a lot of different ways to soften, whatever works for you. There we go. We like, in the first step, we like to give it more the soft than you need, because you'll see why in a minute. Okay, and then we're going to adjust the softness a little bit more. There we go. And that's telling you what varying opacity and brush sizes. Click anywhere in the image to bring back original detail. So it's with the history brush, which is already selected. I'm going to crank this up to 100. I'm going to bring my brush size down a bit. And I'm going to erase the eyes. So the eyes are not soft at all. I'm totally eliminating the soft. Okay, and then I'm going to bring the opacity down a little more. Increase my brush size. And I'm going to go in and take away a little bit of soft. Not much though. So I want it soft. It's a girl. We want her to look soft and feminine. She's very beautiful. Now, her lips are kind of white, and I might go in there, or might not. I might go in there and just kind of darken some of those white spots down a little bit. It almost, to me, looks like it's dry. This is where lip gloss comes in really handy, or just a fresh application of lipstick just before the shoot, or you ask them to just lick their lips with their tongue just to get some moistening effect going on. So, alright, so there's one way to do that. So there we go. And of course we can crop it in, but let me show you what we got before and after. There it is before, there it is after. And of course you can go black and white. Let me crop it in. 8:10. Oh, I'm going to bring that down just for the sake of speeding things up. I'll bring it down to 100. So 8:10, if crop it in nice and tight like that. Okay, and let me just show you how I go black and white. I know this is really simple. Use saturation. Just take the saturation down. And it looks good. I mean, really. Can't argue with it. And sometimes when I go black and white, it ends up looking a little bit flat. So I have to go in and add a little more contrast just to zap it up a bit. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. Thank you.